Hello everyone. So today I'm going to talk about communicating with the dead. So this is not going to be a video that everyone expects as far as what I'm going to suggest. There's a couple people that I thought would benefit from this, so I decided to make it. Keep in mind that there's a number of ways to do this in various traditions. Shamanic ways, spiritualist ways, and in various religions. But there's a general sense that you can get without following a particular tradition, a particular path, a particular religion. There's a way to reach out. And some of the ways are just really basic, but they require practice. They require effort, and they require commitment. So one of the main ways that I communicate with the dead, a lot of people think about Ouija boards. They can work. A lot of people think about pendulums and free writing. I do a lot of free writing, and I have had success with free writing and communicating with the dead. But there's something that you need to cultivate beforehand, before imagining that these other ways that we have seen work in movies and shows or have heard work become the most effective. So when you close your eyes, when you feel your inner space, try to get a general sense of your brain and your lungs. Breathe in and out and feel how so much activity is in the heart, lungs, breath, brain, nose and mouth where you take in air. This area in general, there's a whole lot of activity. And when you close your eyes, the more that you breathe, the more that you just focus on how it feels to breathe, on how it feels for your heart to beat, on how it feels to really just be in this region of your body. Your whole body's alive, but this is where a lot of the activity, a lot of the sensations that we have manifest. A lot of sensory nodes and nerves here, and a lot of activity because you have to breathe in to feel your brain and blah, 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 blah. But right here, chest and brain, close your eyes and practice just breathing and feeling your presence in this area. Feeling the force that just exists as you're breathing and as you're focusing within. With your eyes closed, feel your sense of consciousness just contain within this bubble. It should be a porous bubble. You should feel that your consciousness is not like this isolated sphere, but this kind of porous sphere right here. Do that for a while. Get your sense of understanding and feeling in this area. Once you have that, a lot of the communication that I do, not all of it, but a lot of it is I offer libations. I offer prayers to the dead. I choose a grave, and I work with this grave for days, weeks, months. You don't have to do it every day, but every week helps. Where you're getting to know this particular spot in a graveyard, getting to know this graveyard. And there's a number of different prayers that you can use. There's a number of different offerings that you can use. For instance, I myself, when I drive into a graveyard and I step out, I have at least 2 coins, any kind of coins, just change in general, dimes, pennies, nickels, and quarters, doesn't matter. I put them between my hands. I say, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. I say that into the coins, and I also say, Hail the dead, hail, 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 and I drop the coins. So what am I doing when I'm speaking into this change, into this metal? So metal holds energy and vibration better than something that is made of earth or something that is made of some other kind of material. Definitely not plastic. Please do not leave plastic in graveyards ever. But when you're speaking those words and you're placing your intentions into those coins and you're focusing your energy between your hands into those coins, that is the initial offering. It's an offering saying, hey, nice to see you again. And when you see a person in your life, you're like, hey, how you doing? Something like that. That's basically the same thing for a graveyard. That's how I say, how are you doing? How are y'all doing, basically, because it's a number of different energies mixed together, because spirits, what remains of someone that does exist in a graveyard does not have the same lines of a body that it had when it was alive. And I'm offering that to the ground, and coins are a great way to carry that energy and deposit that energy and make an offering. So when I make that offering, then I'm ready to go to the particular spot that I've been focusing on or been building a reputation with. The reason that you might offer to an entire graveyard and to all the spirits in the graveyard and then go to a grave that you've been to quite often is that it's almost like, you might be sending energy out into the whole graveyard. But when you're going to a particular grave and you're developing a relationship with that grave, where you do a lot of grave work there, you do a lot of magic there, you do a lot of meditation there, you do a lot of prayer there. It forms an easy way to connect to all the other spirits in the graveyard, and all the other. It's an easy transit into connecting to everything else in the graveyard and all the spirits. That's why it's good to know the name of that grave and to make offerings to that particular person in general whose name is on the grave, because that is kind of your like power plug. You're plugging into a wall. If you're trying to plug into a wall and you don't have an outlet to plug into, it's going to be hard to actually make connections. So you need to form a place where you do these activities, where you make these prayers, you make these offerings, and you connect to this grave. Sometimes it's just hanging out there and speaking to that grave as if it were a person, because it is a person. Forming that connection. You might just read their name and just read when they were born and when they die. And perhaps that's all you know. But when you continuously return and speak to that grave saying, oh, you were born at this time and you died at this time, and you talk about those times that they existed in between, those years. Assuming you know a little bit of history. And maybe you just talk to them about your day. And, you ask how their day was. How their days were at this time. You're having a conversation where it's just you on your side saying everything, but you are forming a bond. You are forming somewhere that you could access all the, not access all the spirits, but connect to all the spirits in the graveyard through this one person. It's almost like if you know one person in a group, you connect to that person, then that's your into that group. That's your contact into that group. It's the same way in graveyards. The thing about spirits in graveyards is, they're not as separate as we are physically, because material existence is very different in how they exist. So, pennies, change, good offerings, as you step out of the car. And you can choose Christian prayers. I usually use Christian prayers because a lot of the graves that I work with are Christian, so I like to respect them and meet them on their terms. You can use pagan prayers as well, and Buddhist prayers. I've used both of those as well. You don't always have to greet them on their terms, but I like for that to be kind of like an extra kind of like devotional gesture towards them. But when you get to a grave, when you start to connect with a grave, sometimes you might have to walk around a graveyard for a while before you feel like there's something that I just pinged here, that I just felt within when I passed this one, or when I looked at the name on this grave and the dates, because a lot of time to get the general feel, you have to walk around and then read the names and dates on all the gravestones. So when you get a ping, inside, it just touches your intuition. That's probably a grave that you want to work with. So, like I said, talk to the grave as if it was a person. Talk about the times that they existed in, and maybe even their name, and what you assume based on it, and what you assume based on their religion. Just talk to them. There's a remarkable amount of life force that we leave behind that is kind of going back into the earth. We borrow life force from the earth. Life force is not soul. Life force is not ego. There's different parts of somebody when they die that separate. The part that I usually communicate with is the spirit, the part that we borrowed from the earth that's still identified with the person and is slowly seeping back into the earth. But even if it's almost completely seeped back into the earth, it's a very old grave, you can still access the literally the spirit of the earth or the life force of the earth by working with that grave, because there are all these ways to access it in all these graves. You have a name, time period, you're good, you can access. So there's a number of different kinds of incense that you can offer. Frankincense is good, dragon's blood incense is good, frankincense and myrrh is good. Myrrh is good. I really like frankincense and dragon's blood. I use that all the time in offerings. I light it with a match. So it's best to light incense with a match if you're using it for magic or offerings. And then you place it at the base of the grave, right in the dirt, so that it burns. And try to make sure that if it is burning incense, that it's not around grass that will catch on fire and, cause a fire. Because you don't want to create energetic havoc in a graveyard. You also might want to think of some symbols that you identify with, whether it be a skull in general, whether it be a cross. A cross can just be a towel upon the head of all those who weep for the world, which is what the cross originally was before Christ. Well, it became more identified with crucifixion when Christ came about and Christians started carrying it, but crucifixion was always a thing, and the Tauv was also a thing beforehand. Tauv, they who weep for the world, write the Tauv on their forehead, cross. You can also use, so I'm really drawn to the Chaos Star, which is like, energy in all directions. You are expanding in all 8 directions. Your power is expanding, your connection is expanding in all directions. I identify with the Chaos Star quite a bit. It's also good to kind of collect old photographs and kind of just keep them on your altar. But also, if you're working with a grave, you might want to put these photographs just along the grave. Light incense in front of it, place it in the ground, speak to these pictures as if they were the person as well. And you can also offer, olive oil. Pour olive oil over the top of the grave. Say, I anoint this grave with this oil. I mark this grave in thanksgiving. And you can put some oil on your hand, on your ring finger, and create a cross. Or you can create any symbol that you identify with. The symbol is the connection within you that connects with another thing in them. So sometimes a symbol is more important for you to hold as important for yourself than it was for the person. But, like the cross and Christianity can be another connection with that grave as well. So you can also, I talked about offering coins, speaking of the coins. So now we get to the part where I originally started with. So where when you're feeling your presence in your brain, and then in your respiratory system, and just in this general area where there's a whole lot of life force for, Odin's very much associated with the throat and breath and the mind and thoughts and memory. But it doesn't have to be Odin, but this is where a lot of how you communicate with the dead operates, right here in this circle. So if you can feel a general sense of you existing there in this circle, you breathe and you start to feel it. Perhaps you're on one knee on the grave. You might have to do this beforehand as well. You might have to just sit and meditate for many sessions before you can actually do this in a graveyard. Not necessarily like the day that you do it in a graveyard beforehand, but just you might have to it might take time to get a general sense of you existing in this area and you feeling what it feels like within yourself without seeing yourself, without having external identification. But once you feel yourself in this area and you kneel in front of a grave or you crouch and you place your fingertips into the soil, into the dirt, that feeling that you have right here, and this is why I stretch this, extend it, move it into the ground, into the grave. Doesn't have to necessarily be into the grave, but in a graveyard, it's much easier. And it doesn't have to be in a grave. It doesn't even have to be in a graveyard, but it's much easier to connect with spirits there. You extend that feeling that you felt in this sphere into the ground, and you move that sensation of awareness away from yourself and into the ground, where the spirits are basically meshed and inhabit and are kind of one, with just barely edges of themselves to separate them, because it's more like different fogs of clouds meshing with each other than it is like outlines of people as far as the energy goes. So if you extend yourself into the ground, perhaps you want to place your hand on a gravestone. You want to feel the tactile nature of it. And then you slowly move your awareness into the ground. That's when you start feeling their energy. That's when they communicate with emotions and with understanding that goes beyond words. And you might crouch, or you might stand and have your hand on a gravestone or your hands into the soil. But just stand, kneel, sit, whatever you do, send that awareness into the grave or into the graveyard and hold it there. Don't bring it back up, hold it there, so that there is a link, that there is an awareness that's away from yourself and focused below into their energy. See what it feels like. See if it feels like a language beyond words. If it does, then you're probably doing it right. If it doesn't, if you don't really feel anything, just keep trying. If it doesn't work after multiple tries, then maybe try another technique. But this is one that I'm recommending. And if you do it enough, and you ask questions mentally as your awareness is below into them, and you ask questions in your mind separately, a lot of the time you will get basic answers. It takes a while to get more complicated answers. And once again, you can use pendulums. You can use free writing, where you just clear your mind and you're in a graveyard and you just ask questions and write. Great technique, I use it a lot. But to actually feel them, and maybe not get the answers that you want, or maybe like complicated answers, but to feel their energy, to really have communion with the dead, you have to be able to have this awareness here and then extend it into the ground and make that connection. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. I hope this was interesting. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, shoot them down in the comment section below on YouTube. I'd greatly appreciate any likes, but also any questions that you have. I'd love to answer them, because this is not something that's super clear or super easy to explain, so I expect questions. And also increase traffic to the channel. And feel free to share this video wherever you like. I'd love to get other people watching this kind of material so that we can connect to our dead again, or connect to the dead in general, because there's so many graves and graveyards that I see all the time that nobody's left flowers there in so long. They've been dead maybe over 100 years. Everybody's forgot about them, except for me or people like me who still care about them. And caring about them is the initial thing that makes the connection. You have to actually care about them before you expect communication. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and hope all of you have a wonderful day.